Today, we're going to be talking about healing herbs of the Bible. I wrote this course and this book about 3 years ago just because I was interested in the topic, very fascinated by it. And one of the reasons I became fascinated by it was because there was so much information out there that didn't agree with each other. And what I found in my research was that there is no agreement. So I'm going to go ahead and share with you what I learned, as well as I've got an array of preparations here and some different plants that we're going to take a look at so that you can actually see that we use a lot of these healing herbs today. The fact of the matter is that herbs and plants were the primary ways that people healed themselves back in ancient times. And so today we've lost that knowledge and it's time to bring it back. And that's what my mission is, to get an herbalist into every extended family. I think this is so necessary these days. So let's go ahead and get started, and then I'm going to go ahead and talk about the course in the book in case you're interested. If you are a believer, then you're probably well aware that in Genesis 1:11-13, God actually created the plants and the trees and all the vegetation from the breath of his mouth on that third day. So he created all these plants for us, and it specifically says that in the Bible. There are around 125 plants that are actually mentioned in the Bible, and they're mentioned for a number of different purposes. There's food, there's spiritual practices like anointing and incense, there's building, there's shelter, and of course, there are a few references to medicine. And I know when I first started researching this topic, I was a little bit disappointed to see that there were so few references to actual medicinal use of herbs. But that's okay, because as we know, we can look back, and scientists and anthropologists can look back on those cultures, and actually they do have references for many of the medicinal plants mentioned in the Bible. I believe there's about 48 that researchers feel were actually additionally used as medicinal herbs, and I actually go into those plants in this book and in the course. Another way that plants are mentioned in the Bible is as metaphors for daily living, which I just love that. An example of that is John 15:5, where it says, Jesus is our vine and we are the branches, and without him, we're not going to bear good fruit. We need him to bear good fruit. So things like that, those metaphors are mentioned throughout the Bible. And I think it's partially because, or probably because, people just lived so close to the earth back then, and thinking about things that were familiar to them was a common way to communicate and to tell stories. I want to go ahead and talk about essential oils for a moment. So there's a few people out there who say that essential oils were in the Bible and that's why we should all use them and blah, blah, blah. So I just want to point out that the distillation equipment that we use today to get the essential oils that we get today was not found back in those days. I'm sure there were some crude types of distillation methods in some cultures, but it's very likely that oils that are being referenced in the Bible are herbal infused oils. And I'm going to do a video on the difference between essential oils and herbal infused oils in another video, because I still run across people who get them confused and who are actually selling herbal infused oils as essential oils. It's annoying. And the way you get around that is just to educate people. Just wanted to bring that up because I will be actually showing some essential oils that we now have from these plants that were mentioned in the Bible, but these essential oils weren't available back then. So let's go ahead and dive into, first of all, the 5 specific herbs that are mentioned as medicinal in the Bible. So there's only 5. There's Commiphora gileadensis. This is what was called balm of Gilead. And these days, researchers aren't really sure exactly what plant was being referenced, but they think it was probably the Commiphora gileadensis plant. And that would have been like an Arabian balsam tree or some kind of a relative of myrrh, which is in the Commiphora species, which is in the Commiphora genera. What I do have here is I've got some little cottonwood buds. And these cottonwood buds are actually what we in the West here refer to it oftentimes as balsam. Okay, you can actually go out in the springtime and you can pick these. And these were actually sent to me by one of my students, and she heard in the fall where she's at. So I thought that was really interesting. And then what you do is you infuse those in an oil, and you can make a gorgeous salve that's incredibly healing. That is Commiphora gileadensis, and also the same medicinal, or many of the same medicinal actions are found in our poplars and cottonwoods here. Poplar is analgesic, it's anesthetic, it's antifungal, it is anti-inflammatory, it's antispasmodic, and I'm certain there are other actions too, because it's just an amazing plant. But generally speaking, today we use that salve that I just showed you for sprains and bruises and sore muscles, and you can actually use it as a chest rub for a mild respiratory care salve as well. If you want to power it up with some essential oils, you can certainly do that too. But that's basically how we use it today, and it's really effective. And then fig, Ficus carica, and I love figs, don't you? They're so good. But figs were used as a prominent food source in ancient times in the Bible, and they also had some medicinal uses specifically mentioned in the Bible. So in Isaiah, the book of Isaiah, there's a story of a king called King Hezekiah, and evidently he had gotten a boil and it had become infected, and it was actually causing him to die. He was on his deathbed, so I'm thinking like sepsis or something, right? But anyway, he cried out to the Lord and he said, Lord, please give me some more years to live. And then he was told to take a cake of fig and to apply it to the boil. And so what he was told to do there was to use a poultice, and it would draw out the infection. So fig is antibacterial, it's antimicrobial, it's a laxative, which is nice for many of us. It's a vulnerary, which means it is a skin healing herb, which is really wonderful. It's balancing to the glucose levels in the body. So it's actually one of those fruits that is helpful for the glucose levels. And it's an antifungal. And I did a little more research to find out if I could nail down what infections specifically it was good for. And that would be staph, as well as fungal infections like thrush and ringworm and others. Next up, we have mandrake. I do not have mandrake here. I also didn't have fig. We're out of season for figs. But anyway, mandrake, the reason I don't have mandrake is because it is very toxic. It's poisonous. And researchers aren't really even sure which exact plant that was mentioned in the Bible, and it's a very old book in the Old Testament, but they think it was Mandragora officinarum. And this is a plant that is a very low dose herb, so you have to know exactly what you're doing with it. It is very toxic. And in the UK, it is actually considered a prescription drug, and it needs to be prescribed. But the thinking is that it enhances fertility. And there's a story in the Bible about a woman who went out into a field and dug up a mandrake root to help her out. So that is mandrake. The fourth specific plant mentioned in the Bible was spikenard. And I do have some spikenard essential oil here. I don't have the plant, but spikenard is a relative of valerian. And I would actually open this up and smell it, and I just want to so bad. But I'm not going to, because it is very highly sedative. So I'm going to go ahead and set that aside over here. But spikenard, also known as nard in the Bible, is Nardistachys jatamanzi. And in John 12:3, it says that that's what Mary, Martha's sister, used to anoint Jesus's feet when he and his disciples had come to visit, and then he wiped them with her hair. And I just think that is the most beautiful and honoring story. And some of the disciples got a little upset because evidently this anointing oil was very expensive and was called a perfume. So it was very fragrant, and it is. It's got a very powerful scent. And I want to just give you a little tip. If you get some spikenard essential oil, and you just keep a little 5 milliliter bottle by your bedside. If you wake up in the middle of the night, just take a few whiffs of it deeply, inhale it into your lungs. It's very likely you'll go right back to sleep. It is super relaxing. The fifth herb that's specifically mentioned for medicinal purposes in the Bible is hyssop. This is Hyssop officinalis, and researchers go back and forth on which hyssop this is, again, because they're looking at plants that are native to the area. And so that indicates that it's probably a Syrian oregano, a plant, Oreganum syriacum, and not exactly the hyssop that we use here. And I do have some hyssop here. This is the hyssop that we grow in North America, and this is Hyssop officinalis. And there are some similarities. Oregano is very powerful in terms of antimicrobial action, and it's very fragrant as well. It helps heal infections, and guess what? So is our hyssop. So it's pretty interesting. But in Leviticus 14:4, the Bible mentions that hyssop was used to cleanse a leper. And it is a very cleansing herb. It's very healing. And it smells so good. It smells delightful. So this is a wonderful plant to use, especially if you're working with respiratory needs and things like that. I'm just going to do a quick little rundown of the actions of hyssop because I really like this plant. And you really should, if you can grow this in your garden if you live in North America. But it's antiseptic. It is an antispasmodic. I love the antispasmodic herbs. I just threw out my back the other day and I ran for my antispasmodics. It's astringent, it's expectorant, it's a febrifuge, and it's a sudorific. And the sudorific means it makes you sweat. So this would be the kind of herb to use if you've got a low-grade fever that's just not getting high enough to get you going. Take some hyssop and it'll get you going and maybe get that fever to do what it's supposed to do instead of just being uncomfortable. It's also stimulating. It's a cleansing and purifying plant. It's just wonderful. So those are the 5 herbs that are specifically mentioned in the Bible. And now I'm just going to go ahead and talk to you about my course, and then I'm going to give you the list of, I did 20 other herbs that are also mentioned in the Bible. So in this book, we cover 25 plants. There's a little materia medica for each one, and there's recipes and remedies in this book as well. There's also safety information, directions for how to make an infused oil, and then just some information about plants in the Bible in terms of medicinal use. Again, I wrote this book about 3 years ago, and I wrote the course to go with it. It is not an expensive course. This was a fun project for me, and so it's not expensive at all. I think it's $50 or something, so it's not a high-end course or anything, but it's an awful lot of fun, very interesting, and if you're looking for a present for somebody at this time of year, it might be a good one for you. It's just something to think about. All right, so other medicinals from ancient times were the alliums. So here I've got a string of garlic, one of the allium species. Onions and garlic and they still are, heavily medicinal. The aloes. So aloes is what's not aloe vera like we think of when we read aloes in the Bible. They're referring to sandalwood, and that's from the heart of the tree. And this is Santalum album, and I'm going to smell this. Because it's the most beautiful scent. I wish I could describe this to you, but aloes is sandalwood. And then there's cedar, Cedrus atlanticus. And cedar is, do I have it here? I do have it here someplace, but oh yes, right here. So this is hydrosol. From cedar, and it's just the most gorgeous smelling hydrosol ever. I distilled this last summer in my copper alembic still, and it's amazing. And then of course this is the essential oil, just lovely. So there we go. Oh, and I should mention this, we don't have Cedrus atlanticus growing here, which is the Middle Eastern cedar. That's what this essential oil is. This hydrosol is from the Western red cedar. So it's a little bit different, a little bit of a different scent, but still extremely powerful. And then next up, we've got cinnamon. So here I've got some cinnamon chips, and then I've got the cinnamon essential oil. And I just think that we are so blessed these days to have both the plants and the essential oils to work with. Anise, and another amazing herb, very, very popular in the Middle East. Such a good smell. And the mints, spearmint, was the primary mint used in ancient times. Peppermint is actually a hybrid, and spearmint is the actual mint. Menthus spicata, lovely. And here I've got a tincture. So I'm showing you some different ways to prepare these plants, but this is an alcohol extract, and I just love using this with different kinds of indications. Next up, we have frankincense, and oh my goodness, frankincense. We have the essential oil. It's really nice for grounding. And here I've got some frankincense resin, and this resin is beautiful. This is a very high quality frankincense resin that I have here, and it smells delightful. I'm actually getting ready to do an oil infusion with this frankincense. If I think of it, I'll do a video on that too. I love using frankincense oil. It's Boswellia species. It's very anti-inflammatory. Okay, next up is myrrh, and I do have some myrrh essential oil here. I do not have the resin. Myrrh doesn't really have as strong of a scent as frankincense, but it's obviously one of the gifts from the three kings, along with frankincense and gold. To give a gift of two different beautiful medicinal resins, myrrh and frankincense, along with some gold, that just tells you how valuable the medicinal plants were back then. And I think they should still be considered that way myself. Then there's cumin, there's coriander, there's citron. I do have coriander here. I want to mention the essential oil super fast with coriander. It contains linalool. And linalool, it's so nice, is a chemical that is calming. So I love coriander for that, but the herb is very helpful for digestion. There's citron, which is a little citrus that's really sour and dry. There's cypress, like the big, you see the Italian cypress trees. Cupressus sempervirens is the name. I have my essential oil in on my desk. So there's willow. And I've got lots of willow tincturing, but this little bit of tincture here, I've actually been using with the plant matter still in it. So this is like my personal willow bark tincture. And then we've got myrtle, comes with the essential oil as well. Myrtus communis, very lovely for the respiratory system. And olive, and we've got some olive oil right here holding up my book. All right, so those are the herbs of the Bible. And a quick little rundown. I could have gone deeply into all of these plants, and I do go more deeply into depth with the book. Again, it's just a fun little course, and I hope you enjoy it. And thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of our community here on YouTube. I'm Heidi Villegas with Healing Harvest Homestead. I do have some free gifts for you too. If you go to the first comment in the comment section, I usually put them there, and they're definitely going to be in the description. All right, it was super good talking with you. Oh, one more thing I just want to quickly mention, and I should do a video on this too, like where to buy your essential oils. Please don't buy your essential oils from an herb shop where they are rebottling bulk oils and putting their own brand on them. You want to buy from a company that actually is sourcing their essential oils directly from a company that works with the farms, okay? And that's just for sustainability, as well as to be sure that you get the highest quality product, because a lot of places are selling essential oils these days, and I can guarantee you that they're probably adulterated. Be careful out there with your essential oils, and I will see you in the next video.